Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money. With your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 297 of Screw the Commute podcast. You think about that, 297. That's a lot of episodes, and every one of them has been great. But boy, this is one that's going to really help you out. I've been following this lady on Facebook for a long time, and I never really met her, but boy, she has some awesome information that'll help you out in your business in a way that maybe you haven't thought about for a while. So we'll bring her on in a minute. Hope you didn't miss episode 296. That was Dick Brusso from Heard Above the Noise. He's a branding expert that I've known for 20 some years. He's helped create all kinds of brands for small business people. This one lady is the Divorce Whisperer. That's her brand, and she's gotten all kinds of awards from the courts and everything for keeping divorces, halfway respectable. So really cool guy. Lots of good tips on that episode. Now, how would you like to hear your own voice here on Screw the Commute? Well, if the show has helped you out at all in your business or given you ideas to help you start a business, we want to hear about it. Visit screwthecommute.com and look for a little blue sidebar that says send voicemail. Click on it, talk into your phone or your computer and tell me how the show's helped you. Put your website in there and you'll get a nice big shout out in front of thousands of people in a future episode of Screw the Commute. So do that not now. You want to listen to this show right now. All right, while you're over there, grab a copy of our automation ebook. This ebook has allowed me, or the techniques in the ebook has allowed me to handle up to 150,000 subscribers and 40,000 customers without pulling my hair out. And we figured it out. Just one of the tips, this is not any kind of hype. People thought I was just making this number up. We actually kind of estimated it. Just one of the tips as of 2 years ago when I wrote the book has saved me 7.5 million keystrokes. Okay, so this is seriously all the things I use to respond lightning fast to customers, which allows me to steal business off of competitors who say, oh, well, we'll get back to you in 48 hours. I'm thinking 48 hours, I could be dead in 48 hours. Come on. So you want to really with lightning speed. So this is a book we sell for $27. You get it free for listening to Screw the Commute. So visit screwthecommute.com/automate free. Screwthecommute.com/automate free. And while you're at it, pick up a copy of our podcast app. Screwthecommute.com/app. That's APP. So you can take us with you on the road, on your cell phone, your tablet. It has all kinds of cool things, and we train you on how to use it. All right, well, we're sitting here in the middle of this pandemic, and people are freaking out, and we're just starting to open up a little bit, but a lot of people really got hit in the head with like, boy, I wish I could make money from home. And I'm thinking, yeah, I've been telling you that for over 20 years. So I actually have a school. It's the only licensed dedicated internet marketing school in the country, called imtcva.org, that teaches all the stuff that I've been using, the nuts and bolts, email marketing, blogging, social media marketing, all this stuff that we do, that I've been using every day for, 26 years now since the commercial internet started, teach you how to do it so you can have a nice lifestyle business. And it's a great legacy gift for your grandchildren or children or nephews and nieces, because it's a highly in-demand skill that they won't be saddled with debt for the rest of their lives and competing for jobs at Starbucks when they get out of these. Well, I mean, they will learn how to protest. That's a good, one good thing about the big colleges. All right, so check that out at imtcva.org. All right, let's get to the main event. Dr. Joan Kent has a PhD, and listen to this, psychoactive nutrition. Now, I have dealt with lots of psychos in my day, but I don't know if it had anything to do with nutrition. Maybe it did, we'll find out. But this is how foods affect your brain chemistry and hormones. And she was the first to document the brain chemical pathways of sugar addiction. And Joan helps clients reverse diabetes, high blood pressure. I don't know what PCOS is, she'll tell us. inflammation, mood swings, and her book, Stronger Than Sugar, is about kicking sugar addiction. And she's going to apply this to how this can help us in our business. So, Joan, are you ready to screw the commute?
I'm Tom.
Wait a minute. This Joan lady that we're talking to gets up at 3:45 in the morning. I never saw that time of day other than going to sleep. But anyway, I'm glad she's with us today. So the first thing I got to ask you is, what the heck is psychoactive nutrition as opposed to just nutrition?
Nutrition tends to focus on foods as a collection of nutrients, calories in the food, grams of fat, grams of carb, grams of protein, the vitamins and minerals they contain, and things like that. That's all important. Psychoactive nutrition focuses on how foods affect brain chemistry and hormones. The reason I find that fascinating is that anything psychoactive will affect mental state, and that also means behavior. So whether we're talking about prescription drugs like antidepressants or recreational drugs like marijuana, beverages like alcohol, or even coffee, all of those affect mental state, and foods can be psychoactive too. They can affect mental state as well.
A lot of them are just packed full of sugar that we don't know about, right?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. If somebody decides, let me use as an example comfort foods. Comfort foods usually affect mental state, or we wouldn't use them as comfort foods. For example, most vegetables don't affect mental state, and that's why we don't get emotionally hooked on broccoli or asparagus.
Sometimes I think there was a president that was emotionally hooked against broccoli a while back. I think
that's more usual.
Yeah, I think it was Bush.
That's more usual. Anyway, we don't use vegetables as comfort foods because there's no psychoactive effect. On the other hand, comfort foods do affect mental state, and they don't necessarily have to contain sugar, although many of them do. But let me give you an example of something that doesn't. Some people would find mashed potatoes with gravy, or even baked potatoes with a lot of butter. There's no sugar there, but it does change mental state. It changes the brain chemistry. And as a result, we feel different. And many people would say we feel better after eating those foods. So that's basically.
So are you saying that's good or bad, or you can't really say?
I would just say it's neutral. It's what we do with it. This is just knowledge, because foods can go one way and keep us alert and focused, or they can make us sleepy and feel what I call foggy brained. We decide which ones we're going to use, and as a result, we'll get the effect. So it's not what's good or bad. This is just a reality about food, and knowing about it means we can use them wisely.
Yeah, because a lot of people just kind of fog their way through life, having a big bunch of bagels for breakfast, or like really high carb stuff and sugar laden stuff, and then they wonder why they can barely keep their eyes open a couple hours later.
Good point. Very good point, and absolutely true.
So what does a person do about that? You're saying simply changing. So if they change away from their comfort foods, do they feel slighted now or deprived?
That might go on, but when we eat protein foods, we are alert and focused and productive throughout the day. And that's a great thing. And that's because the brain makes two chemicals that are actually the same ones that we release when we have caffeine. People drink coffee to feel alert and productive, and you can actually do this simply by eating protein foods. And the name of those chemicals are dopamine and norepinephrine. So I have clients who say, well, why should I eat protein? Why not just drink coffee? And that's but at the same time, the answer lies in how they work. I'll get fancy and say the mechanism of action. And basically, when we eat protein, the brain makes more dopamine and norepinephrine throughout the day. So it keeps us awake throughout the day. And when we drink caffeine, we're just using up the dopamine and norepinephrine that have been stored in the brain. So as the day wears on, if you keep drinking coffee, you may find that each cup of coffee is giving you less of that wake up hit that you're used to. And maybe even at the end of the day, you feel more fatigued than if you hadn't had any. So things
Well,
like that.
things like for me, like if I have caffeine in the morning, I don't know. I guess everybody, of course, is different, but I can barely sleep at night. I stay up way later than if I had just drank water all day. So I kind of avoid it if I know I have to get up. I don't want to have a lot of caffeine because it just keeps me awake all night.
That's a very good point. Some people are much more sensitive to these things. Everything we're going to talk about today is probably a case where some people are more
Hmm.
sensitive than
Well,
others.
I've never been
So
accused
you're
of being too sensitive about much of anything, but maybe caffeine is the one thing.
yes. So its effect on you is stronger than it would be on some. I know people who could drink a cup of coffee at 11 p.m. and be sound asleep by
Wow.
11:45. So
Oh,
right. I don't know how they
let
do.
me take a
Go ahead.
sidebar here. I am allergic to alcohol, and
Oh,
and I used to live in Washington D.C. and when I'd say that, people would like whisper like, "Oh, I understand. You're alcoholic. Okay, well, we won't." No, I said, I mean, if I take one drop of anything, including some liqueur that's in a dessert or something, I break out in hives and I'm looking for an air conditioning duct to stick my head in. So what do you think that's from?
it actually means that you lack the enzymes to process the alcohol. And you don't have to be, as you just pointed out, you don't have to be alcoholic or a recovering alcoholic for that to be true. You just lack the enzymes that you need
Well, I'm
to.
thrilled to death about it. I mean, if there's something to be allergic to, that's a good thing. I mean, especially I owned a nightclub for 6 years, and most of those people turn out to be alcoholics. And I'm always a designated driver, never, out of control, drunk, So I think that's a great thing to be allergic to. But I didn't know why I was allergic to it.
I don't drink either. And the reason I don't is I know people think I'm crazy when I say this, but I don't like being high.
Yeah, yeah, I don't
Seriously.
like feeling out of control. The one time before I understood what was going on, I didn't feel right, and I like to be in control of the situation out in public, and that's I guess that's same as being high, but yeah, I didn't like it at all.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. I like clarity. I prefer reality. I don't want to be off in some, drug induced anything, no matter what the drug is, alcohol or anything
Yeah.
else.
All right. So, this how can entrepreneurs use this idea of psychoactive nutrition and manipulating their brain chemistry to their advantage?
Okay, let's talk about which foods are protein foods and which will get that effect of alertness and productivity.
Okay.
We'll do standard ones and that things that vegans can do.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start with protein foods like fish, chicken, beef, eggs, shrimp, crab, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt. These are all things that people know.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't say that, but most people know that those are protein foods. And for vegans often use things like lentils, beans,
No,
chickpeas,
they use
or pea.
cardboard. I got to tell you, when people come to my retreat center, if I see vegan on their thing, I'm thinking, oh man, I'm going to go buy a $6 cookie at Whole Foods that tastes worse than the cardboard that it's wrapped in. And then what happens, Joan, is they get here and we got all this other stuff and they say, well, we'll take off this weekend as a vegan. And then they don't eat any of the vegan stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
you've got the solution,
Only the
Tom.
real hardcore ones bring their own. I don't know what they bring with them, but I know it's not one of those things that I get emotionally attached to. Put it that way.
Well, what I was going to say about the choices that vegans usually make, lentils, beans, quinoa,
Hmm.
garbanzo beans, those things are mostly carbohydrate. It's not that they don't have any protein in them, but if you really want the effect that we're talking about, the psychoactive effect of protein, you probably have to go with foods that have more protein. Nuts are the same way. People use nuts thinking that they're protein, but they're not. They're fats and they have very little protein. So, what I recommend for vegans is getting plant based protein powders. And they're made from brown rice, from hemp, from peas, from vegetables. There are many different kinds. But here, I'll say to everybody, write this down. Don't skimp on protein if you want the brain chemical effects of protein. Don't go with something that's a fake protein. And I consider nuts and quinoa fake proteins because they don't have much. They're really, most foods have a combination of protein, fat, and carbohydrates. And some have only two of the three, but it's very rare that you have a food that has only one. But just because a food has some protein doesn't make it high protein. So I went to a retreat that I knew was going to have vegetarian cuisine, and I know how important protein is in my well-being. So I went to, I think it was Whole Foods, and I got myself 15 envelopes. We were there for 5 days, 3 meals a day, 15 envelopes of vegetable protein powder. So every time we went into the dining hall, I'd take one of those envelopes with me, tear it open, dump it in a cup, add some water, stir it up, and drink it. And then my attitude was, okay, my protein needs have been taken care of, and now I can just enjoy my vegan meal. And that's how I handled it.
Well, so I thought you said it was vegetarian. That's not the same as vegan, right?
No, it's not. I probably should have said vegan because there was nothing there that I could have used for protein if I hadn't brought my own.
See, this is a good idea, and I'll preface this. Of course, I'm teasing, but so if a vegan did what you said and added the protein, their brain chemistry is going to change, and they'll be more alert and more cool in their mind, and then maybe they'll figure out maybe I shouldn't be vegan.
Oh, Tom, I am.
You know how I think. You know the comments I put on your site. So
I'm so going to leave that alone and let you be the one who said that.
I know
Tom.
we'll be picketing out in my cul-de-sac here pretty soon, but all you have to do is throw some cardboard out there and they'll run for it. So you're saying that bottom line is if you add a reasonable amount of protein, your brain chemistry will change to the point to make you more alert, less likely to fall asleep or have an energy dump in the middle of the day. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And you won't need as much caffeine through the day. Just, for the people who rely on caffeine to stay awake and feel productive, they won't need quite as much of that.
Now, are these packets of stuff that you bought, are they tasty, or are they just like, I'll just, force this down before I throw up, or what is, are they, what are some brands or some flavors? How does that work?
Okay, the one that I took to the retreat was Garden of Life. That's the brand. And it said raw protein. So it was not just vegan, it was raw. So this is very healthful stuff. And I would say it does not taste good, but all I wanted to do was I didn't have to mix it up with a whole glass of water. I mixed it up with just enough water to get it, moist enough to drink. And I drank that down, and then I finished with a fresh glass of water. And no, it was not horrible, but everybody has taken at some point some medicine they didn't like.
Yeah, but you did it 15 times in a row. Come on.
Yes, I did. Yes,
All right,
I did.
but is
Is
there more palatable stuff that maybe isn't quite as good, but still better than the diet people are having now?
Yes. Let me think, because there's a hemp protein that I like. Some brands I don't like, and now I'm trying to remember.
Can you smoke it too, or what? Yeah, so you're sitting there at dinner smoking and saying, well, I'm adding protein to my head. Most people would dispute that you're killing your brain cells, but whatever. All right, so can this be a tasty
you make
thing?
Me laugh. Okay, I'm trying to think. There's a now you're catching me in like a senior moment, because I'm trying to remember the name of this.
Well, drink some of your stuff. How fast does it take effect?
Oh, that's a very good question. As a matter of fact, maybe we should talk about that instead of the specific names. But if somebody goes to Whole Foods and just goes to the aisle with the protein powders, they'll find these things, and it's very easy. And any ordinary store.
Well, what do you look for on the label?
You want to see that it's protein, basically with no junk, and the junk would be things like, I shouldn't say this, but there are some places that sell a lot of protein that is mixed in with a lot of sweeteners and all this kind of stuff. Don't look for something that's going to make it taste good. I had a
Oh,
client,
that's what I'm trying to get at.
yeah, yeah, but there's a hemp one that begins with an M, and I actually thought it was an odd taste, but I actually thought it was kind of good. I
Well,
liked
if you
it.
think of it later, we'll
And,
put it in the show notes. But now, do you have
okay,
to drink this
okay.
stuff or can you mix it in your food?
Oh, you absolutely can. If you made yourself, let's just say, a bowl of oatmeal and you stirred it
Hmm.
in, that's a perfectly good way to get your protein in the morning through protein
Without
powder.
suffering
Mhm.
any, if you're taste aversive.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. And you can add some helpful fats to the oatmeal, and then it becomes really tasty. People love walnuts in their
Hmm.
oatmeal, for example. So that's just one way, or you could put some berries in there. I mean, there you are. So now you've got something that will give you the protein through the protein powder and not taste
Got
horrible.
it, got it. But again, what things do you want to definitely avoid when you're looking at the label? Because you walk into those aisles, there's like hundreds of things, and you're standing there looking like you're in a trance because there's so many to pick from. So, what are some specific things you definitely want to avoid?
Avoid sugar, avoid
And
sweeteners.
sugar can
Those are
be
things.
called a lot of things, right?
Yes, it
What are some
can.
of the
It absolutely.
names of sugar that they hide the sugar with? Sucralose or I don't know,
Sucralose
fructose?
is one. That's an artificial sweetener. Fructose is from fruit. Sometimes it'll say fruit juice concentrate,
Uh-huh.
and people think because it comes from fruit, it's automatically good. That's not really true. Fructose itself is not really healthy.
Okay.
So, yeah. But anything on the label that makes it sound as if it's going to be tasty. If it says chocolate,
Yeah.
seriously, if it says chocolate, it probably has sweetener. Even if it says vanilla, it probably has sweetener. And I had a client that I was trying to get away. She really had a serious problem with sugar. I was trying to get her away from sugar completely, especially first thing in the morning. And I told her which protein I wanted her to buy and to mix it up with water first thing before she had anything else. And she went out and bought a vanilla protein powder, and she used to stir it into her orange juice. And then she told me that the protein shakes, as she called them, were delicious. And I'll say this: delicious is suspicious.
That's a
Usually,
good line.
if it, if it tastes delicious, it probably has something sugary in it. So it was not doing her any good to start her day with that, because that was exactly the opposite of what I wanted her to do. So look, avoid the flavors. If it says unflavored or unsweetened, those are the words on the label that will lead you in the right
Okay, so
direction.
that's good. So, but to know that I can mix it in with something else
Oh
is
yes.
good if you
Oh yes.
really like this, if you've got a sweet tooth. Okay, so back to how fast does it work? Does it depend on your size and or metabolism or what?
Oh, I think you could be feeling it within a matter of hours.
Okay, so
Maybe even less than
are you
that.
a big proponent of the old breakfast is the most important meal thing?
I know I've always felt that it gets my day off to a right start, but some people are against it for a lot of reasons. And now that people are doing
Yeah,
intermittent fasting, that's usually the meal that they tend to skip, and they'll start later. I would I just feel right now I need to keep my mouth shut on this and let people decide what to do. But I will say the first thing to start your day with is good, or rather protein is a good thing to start your day with.
better than a high carb bagel or toast or donuts or any of that stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I've been doing intermittent fasting and so I would guess you would say you experiment and then chart how you're feeling maybe and see what works best for you. So I can easily go to noon with just drinking water in the morning, and then between noon and 8, I don't eat anything after 8, and that seems to work fine for me. And I sleep better. And if I eat too late, I'm burping, and it's just uncomfortable sleeping. Intermittent fasting, what is that, 16 hours, has been working for me. But to each his
That
own.
sounds like a good plan. And you've got it worked out for yourself. And a lot of people are probably trying to figure it out maybe what you just told them could help.
Well, the thing is, you have to. The only time I've ever been successful at this is to pay closer attention to it. And that means write stuff down, because literally I could eat something and then half hour later, I don't even remember what it was, or I did it, or I did it unconsciously. So my best success has been to have a notebook and then write down the time, what I ate, and how much water I've consumed, and just keep track of that. And then I don't have to, if I get busy or stressed, I don't have to just keep shoveling food in, and without any knowledge of how many calories I piled into myself when I wasn't thinking. Because we're in business, so during our business day, a lot of things can happen, good, bad, and indifferent. But if we ignore, what we're shoveling in our face, and if we're talking about working from home too, so the refrigerator is right there. It's not like you got to get out of your cubicle and go down to the cafeteria 3 floors down. It's like, 10-second walk to go stuff your face. So that's why, but you're saying within a couple hours, you should be able to feel the effects of what you have ingested?
Yes, and I sometimes even earlier than that, sooner than that. It might not even take a full 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mentioned sleep. What are your thoughts on sleep and your psychoactive nutrition?
Okay, well, foods can definitely affect our sleep, and they do it in 3 ways. And I'll tell you what, I'll just list the 3 ways now, and then we can talk about them individually. Does that
Yep.
sound
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Go ahead.
Okay, you can have trouble falling asleep when you get into bed, and that's usually due to brain chemistry. You can have trouble waking, or you can wake up in the middle of the night and have trouble going back to sleep, and that has more to do with glucose or blood sugar. And then
Also has to do on
third.
how old you are and how many times you got to pee.
Okay, I don't know if food's going to help that, but
Okay. All right. So falling
but
asleep, waking up, and not getting back to sleep. And what's the third one?
the third one would be poor quality sleep,
Uh-huh.
and that has to do with brain waves. So let's just take a look at these, and I'll try to make these brief.
Okay.
So if you have trouble falling asleep, it could be. This goes back to something you said at the very beginning of the show, that you had caffeine too late in the day. And some people are more sensitive to that than others, and you obviously are one of the sensitive ones.
Or you
The other
listen to the
thing,
Screw the Commute podcast that I had a terrible guest, and that could help you go to sleep.
or you can read my dissertation, and that will
Okay.
put you to sleep. Okay, but the half life of caffeine is like 4 to 6 hours, and so some people in the afternoon will have multiple cups of coffee or tea or whatever it is, and so there's a cumulative effect, and that can affect them. So that's one way. And the other thing is eating protein late at night. Here's this food that keeps us wide awake, and if you have like a gigantic portion of protein with your dinner, that might contribute to your staying
Mm-hmm.
awake. Okay, so what you want to do is avoid caffeine late in the day, especially multiple cups. Eat protein all day long so that you don't feel as if you need as much caffeine. That can help. And then limit the size of your portion at dinner.
Got it.
All right. So then waking up in the middle of the night and not being able to get back to sleep. Okay. Sugary foods before bed, things like a piece of cake, a piece of pie, a bunch of cookies. Again, some people are more sensitive to this effect than others, but that can keep you awake. That can give you that effect, and not keep you awake. I meant to say wake you up in the middle of the night. And now people are going to want to throw things at me. Um, but alcohol can do this too, especially a mixed drink that has like a sugary mixer, let's say something like a daiquiri. There's a lot of sugar in the mixer.
Mm-hmm.
So between the alcohol and the sugar in the mixer, that can affect our sleep in the same way, wake us up in the middle of the night. So what to do? Avoid sugary snacks before bed. And I know, avoid alcohol before bed. And this is a stressful time, and many people are using alcohol as a go-to sleep inducer. And while I can understand the need for that, it can mess up your sleep in the way I just described. But also when we talk about poor quality sleep and brain waves, alcohol at night will do the same thing. We don't get into the really deep stages of sleep until the alcohol is completely metabolized. So we might stay in this very light stage of sleep and it's never really restful. You wake up in the morning and you feel as if you really haven't had a good rest. And that's especially true for women. Smaller body size, lighter weight, less muscle mass. All of those things can be reasons that women are more messed up by alcohol at night than men, but it can mess men up as well. So the answer again would be to avoid alcohol before bed. So what's a good general way to get yourself to sleep? Well, let's say about 80 to 90 minutes before bed. Have some starch. Now, these are the things that people call carbs, but I don't use that word because vegetables are carbs and so are fruits. So I get very specific starches such as quinoa, yams, potatoes, pasta, rice, and even a slice of bread are something that will help you get to sleep. You don't have to have a big portion of this. It's just about changing your brain chemistry, not eating an extra meal. And so for people on, let's just say people on ketogenic diets, they might think, oh, I can never have that. But that's not really true. And I've been thinking about this because I have clients who are on the keto diet. And how do I work around this? Well, if they avoid all kinds of carbs at breakfast and they avoid carbs at lunch, and maybe even avoid carbs at dinner, I think you're allowed
20
something in the
grams. Yeah,
neighborhood.
for heavy duty weight loss, it's 20 grams a day. It's
20 grams
yeah.
a day. Okay, so you can figure out how much 20 grams of starch is, but now you're talking about weight loss. I think it goes a little
Yeah,
bit
you
higher
can go
if you're
50 grams for maintenance on a keto. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, so somewhere in that range, depending on what you're doing with the keto diet, you can have 80 to 90 minutes before bed all of your starches that you're allowed for that day, all of the carbs that you're allowed for that day, and you can use this technique to make sure that you get a good night's sleep. It's not going to have the effect that sugar will or that alcohol will. It's not going to have. It'll just change your brain chemistry so that you get to sleep. And if that doesn't work, it's rare that it doesn't work, but if it doesn't, just add a little bit of saturated fat like butter or coconut oil. Put some butter on a potato or have some coconut oil on a slice of bread, something like that. And if that doesn't work, we'll call out the industrial strength sleep inducer, and that would be like having some turkey plus some starch plus some butter or coconut oil, some saturated fat, and that's almost guaranteed. Again, I'm going to say the portion doesn't have to be big. I'm not trying to give you an extra meal or make anybody gain weight. We just want to have this be enough to change our brain chemistry.
Yeah, and you could always get a ball bat and hit yourself in the head to be one way. But I was thinking about the alcohol stuff. Do you remember the comedian Rita Rudner? She was like,
yes.
She was like very demure and very, always doing an evening gown. And she says, I don't know why they don't want women to drink alcohol when they're pregnant. She says, if it wasn't for alcohol, most women wouldn't be pregnant in the first place. Okay, so those are some good tips for falling asleep. What's if you have the symptom waking up in the middle of the night, what to do, and what was the last one? Poor quality sleep.
Poor quality sleep or not being able to fall asleep.
Yeah, that was the first one, not being able to fall asleep. And I'm just thinking it would take some effort for me to use that pasta thing because I would like giant thing of spaghetti and 6 meatballs and a whole bunch of really acidy sauce and a bunch of garlic bread. I guess that's not what you had in mind. So
it's not what I had in mind. But
so who are some of the people that who are your clients? Who comes to get help from you?
Oh, I have people with lots of different issues. Some people with mood swings, or people who binge eat, or people who have inflammatory conditions. And since inflammation underlies all chronic disease, that means people with diabetes or high blood pressure, insulin resistance, high triglycerides, high cholesterol, PCOS. You mentioned this.
Yeah, what is that?
It's polycystic ovary syndrome.
Oh yeah,
So
I've had that. Yeah.
how are your
My
ovaries?
feminine side. Yeah.
Now?
No, I used that mood swing thing with the baseball bat, and I took care
Oh
of
gosh.
it.
Okay. Well, women with polycystic ovary syndrome basically have insulin problems, and that's what it's all about. But also irritable bowel or MS, multiple sclerosis, and then something called CIDP, chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. And both MS and CIDP are autoimmune as well as inflammatory. There are all different kinds of things.
Yikes.
I specialize in food addictions if somebody has a problem with that. But I do ordinary stuff too. If somebody comes, I just want to feel better. I want to increase my energy, like to lose weight. I mean, I do ordinary things as well.
Now, do they have to see you in person, or can you do this remotely?
Oh, heck no. I have a lot of clients I've never
Mm-hmm.
met now between Zoom and Skype and everything else.
So you're screwing the commute, basically.
I guess I
Yeah.
am.
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, do you see people in person if they live near? I don't even know where you are.
If they live nearby me and it works out for mutual advantage, then yes, I do.
Where are you located?
Thank you for asking. I'm in Foster City, California, which is about 25 miles south of San Francisco.
So,
And
is that like where us on the East Coast here, there's fires every day?
I know there are in San Francisco, but down where I am, just 25 miles south in this very calm residential neighborhood, fortunately, we have not been dealing with that.
No, I said fires.
Oh, yes. Well, okay.
I didn't
Even-
say
even-
riots. I meant like I thought on the East Coast we hear that California is half the state's on fire all the time. So and there's smoke everywhere. Is that part of the area that's affected by that?
Again, not where I
Oh.
am. There are a lot of places where there's a lot of countryside that's very dry because of droughts.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's where those fires tend to emanate. So it's not where I am. Again, fortunately.
Great. So how do people get a hold of you?
Okay, my website is lastresortnutrition.com. And if you go there, I've got a couple of gifts. Keep scrolling down. You'll see here's a gift, here's another gift. And one of them is something you can request, and that's a free phone consult with me. And if you want to send me an email directly, send it to Dr. Joan, that's just Dr. Joan, Joan, no period, Dr. Joan at lastresortnutrition.com.
Great. We'll have all that stuff in the show notes. So thanks for coming on. I mean, this was a little bit different than we usually do, but I mean, if you want to be in business for yourself, you have to think. You don't have 50 people on a team working for you. You have to be able to think, be clear-headed. You can't be falling asleep half the day when you only have so many hours to work. And so this stuff is really, really important to your success. So that's why I wanted to have Joan on, because she's highly respected. Like I said, I've been following her on Facebook for a long time. What's the Facebook page? Is it the same thing, Last Resort Nutrition?
Actually, it's not. It's Food Addiction Solutions.
Okay, food. So facebook.com/food addiction solutions.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's how I found her. So thanks, appreciate it for coming on. I know you've been up since 3:45, and, and we're doing this at 10 a.m. Eastern time, and I know she's been up for a long time. But see how alert she is? So she must have had she walks her talk. So thanks, Joan, for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. We'll catch everybody on the next episode. See you later, and get that protein in you so you can think straight. All right. Catch you later.